The letter lies unopened, like a wound he can't touch. Daniel sits in the silence of his kitchen, the clock ticking loud enough to sound like accusation. He tells himself it's just another day, but his hand trembles as he lifts the envelope with her name. Her handwriting, still looping, still gentle. He doesn't open it. He doesn't need to. He knows what it is, and he knows he can't face it. Regret lives in the corners of his home, where her laughter once echoed. He mutters that she doesn't need him, not now, not ever. But the lie is thin, see-through. Outside, the rain starts to fall, steady, patient. He looks at the phone on the table, blinking with a missed call. Her voice still lingers in the voicemail. "Dad, please." It would mean everything. He closes his eyes and whispers to no one. Not this time. What would you say to someone who stopped waiting for you? The morning comes gray and hollow. Daniel walks to his shop, pretending life goes on. The bell above the door rings to an empty store. He counts inventory he doesn't need to count. Polishing wood that's already clean. Every sound feels too loud. The scrape of a chair. The hum of the fluorescent light. He imagines her walking down an aisle somewhere soon, without him there to give her away. He tells himself she'll be fine. She always was. But deep down he knows it's not her strength that haunts him. It's her forgiveness. Because he's never been able to forgive himself. That night, Daniel sits on his porch with a glass of whiskey, the ocean whispering below. He can still hear Rebecca's voice, soft, urging, forgiving, and it cuts deeper now. He wonders what she'd say if she saw him like this, afraid to see his own child. The sea air chills his bones, but he doesn't move. Somewhere beyond the waves, time keeps moving forward, dragging him along whether he's ready or not. Across town, Emily sits at her wedding planning desk, surrounded by white ribbons and checklists. Her smile is polite, but her heart isn't in it. Michael notices, though she tries to hide it. When she finally admits her father isn't coming, he doesn't scold her for hoping. He just takes her hand and says, maybe he needs another reason. She doesn't understand what he means. Not yet. That night, the phone rings again. Daniel doesn't recognize the number. He almost lets it go. Almost. But something in him, something that sounds like Rebecca's voice, makes him pick it up. A man's voice greets him, calm and familiar, though he can't place it. "Mr. Hayes, my name's Michael," it says. "I think it's time we talked." The road into town winds through the fog like a secret. Michael drives in silence, Emily's voice message replaying in his mind. Don't try to fix him. Just understand him. But he can't do nothing. The man who raised the woman he loves deserves one last chance to be part of her story. At a red light, he glances at the folded paper on the passenger seat. The letter Emily wrote years ago, but never sent. He doesn't know how Daniel will react, only that he has to try. Somewhere down that road, a father sits alone, refusing to believe he's still needed. Daniel hears the truck pull up outside but doesn't look. He knows that sound doesn't belong here, not to this small road where no one visits anymore. A knock follows, sharp, clear. He hesitates before opening the door, expecting a stranger selling something. Instead, it's a young man with steady eyes and too much kindness for this hour. "Mr. Hayes?" he asks softly. Daniel nods but says nothing. The silence between them feels older than both of them combined. They sit across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table that has heard too much silence. Michael speaks first, his voice calm, respectful. He doesn't try to convince. He just explains that Emily wanted her father there. Daniel interrupts, saying she doesn't need him now. Michael nods as if he expected that. "She still looks for you in every decision she makes," he says quietly. Daniel's jaw tightens. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Only the ticking clock dares to speak. Michael glances around the small home. Photographs on the wall, one in particular of Emily as a child on her father's shoulders. "She talks about this house like it's still hers," he says gently. Daniel doesn't reply. His eyes trace the picture without looking at it. Michael reaches into his jacket pocket, then stops. "There's something I need to give you," he says, "but not yet." Daniel looks up sharply, suspicion flickering across his face. For the first time, the silence feels less like distance, more like pressure building before something breaks. As Michael prepares to leave, Daniel finally asks, "Why come all this way?" Michael looks at him, calm but steady. "Because she deserves her father at her wedding," he says, then pauses. "And because you deserve to know the truth." He hands Daniel a sealed envelope, older than the wedding invitation, the paper slightly yellowed. "She wrote this 3 years ago. She never sent it." Daniel's fingers tremble as he takes it. Michael steps toward the door, leaving behind the weight of what comes next. The envelope sits on the table like a heartbeat he's afraid to touch. Daniel stares at it for a long time before finally sliding his thumb beneath the seal. The paper trembles in his rough hands as if it remembers the weight of her love. He hesitates, then unfolds it. The handwriting is familiar, steady, looping, full of the same grace he abandoned. The first words stop him cold. "Dear Dad, I don't hate you." His chest tightens. Outside, the sea wind rises, brushing against the window as though someone's knocking to be let in. Her words read like forgiveness written in secret. She tells him she understands why he left after her mother died. That grief changes people, turns them into ghosts long before they're gone. She writes that she waited for years, listening for his truck to pull into the driveway, even when she knew it wouldn't. "If you ever come back," the letter ends, "it'll still be here. But please don't come back out of guilt. Come back because you want to know who I became." Daniel presses the page against his chest, breathing like a man surfacing after too long underwater. Daniel walks outside, the letter still in his hand. The air smells of salt and rain. He looks toward the horizon, the sky heavy with clouds that refuse to break. In his mind, her words replay. Not accusations, but understanding. It's the first time in years he allows himself to feel the weight of everything he lost. "You never stopped waiting," he whispers. And for the first time, his voice cracks open like a wound learning to heal. That evening, Daniel finds Michael waiting by his truck. The younger man looks uncertain, almost guilty. "She wrote more than one letter," he says quietly. Daniel frowns. Michael hands him another envelope. This one smaller, marked only with the initials R.H. Michael hesitates before explaining. "It's from my father. He wanted me to give it to you if I ever found you." Daniel blinks, confused. "Your father?" Michael nods slowly. "He said he owed you his life." Inside, Daniel opens the second envelope with trembling hands. The handwriting is unfamiliar, bold, uneven. It begins, "If you're reading this, I never got to thank you." The words describe a car crash on a stormy road decades ago. A stranger who pulled another man from the wreckage before disappearing. Daniel realizes he was that stranger. Michael's father had been the man he saved. His breath catches. The paper falls from his grip as he finally understands why Michael came. The past has been circling him all along, waiting for this moment to come full circle. The morning arrives without permission. Daniel stands by his truck. Suitcase open, hands uncertain. He hasn't driven past the town limits in years. The road ahead looks the same, but everything inside him feels different. He folds both letters into his coat pocket, like two voices guiding him, one from the daughter who forgave him, one from the man who unknowingly tied their lives together. The sea hums behind him, low and endless. He locks the door to his house, hesitates, then leaves the key under the mat, as if he'll one day return a lighter man. As miles unspool beneath the tires, Daniel sees ghosts in every reflection. His wife's face in the passenger window, Emily's laughter carried in the wind. The radio hums static between old country songs and silence. He remembers the day he left home after the accident, how he told himself he was protecting his daughter from seeing what grief had done to him. But grief doesn't stay behind. It travels quietly, hidden in every mile. He grips the wheel tighter, whispering, "I'm coming, kiddo," as the sun breaks through a line of clouds ahead. At a rest stop overlooking the valley, Daniel steps out and breathes deeply. The world feels wider than he remembered. He sits on a bench, unfolds Emily's letter again, reading the same words but hearing them differently now. A couple walks by, father and daughter, their laughter carried by the breeze. He smiles faintly. For the first time, it doesn't ache. It simply reminds him that love doesn't die when people stop talking. It just waits, quiet and patient, for courage to find it again. He stops for gas in a small town he once passed through with Rebecca years ago. The station hasn't changed. Same cracked sign, same wind chime over the door. Inside, a woman behind the counter glances up. "Haven't seen you in a long time," she says. He nods politely, but doesn't explain. Some stories don't need to be told twice. As he walks back to his truck, he notices a field of wildflowers beside the lot. The kind Rebecca loved. The kind Rebecca. He stands there a while, not saying a word. As the day fades, Daniel reaches the outskirts of the city. The skyline glows in gold and amber. He pulls over on a hill, overlooking it, hands resting on the steering wheel. He whispers to himself, "She's really getting married." The weight of those words breaks something open inside him, not pain, but surrender. He looks at the letters once more, then at the road ahead. The world is quieter now, as if holding its breath for what comes next. Daniel starts the engine, driving toward the life he once ran from. The church stands white against the late afternoon sky, dressed in ribbons and lilies. Daniel parks far down the street, unseen. He sits in the truck, hands gripping the steering wheel as guests drift inside. Laughter echoing faintly through the open doors. He watches as Emily steps out of a car in her wedding dress, glowing with the kind of calm joy that hurts to look at. He should leave. That's what he tells himself. But he doesn't. For the first time, his silence feels small next to the sound of her happiness. Inside, music drifts through the open doors, a slow piano melody that feels like memory set to sound. Daniel leans forward, unable to stop himself from watching. Through the window, he sees Michael greeting guests, calm and kind. Their eyes meet for a brief second, though Michael gives no sign. He turns back toward the altar, his face unreadable. Daniel sits back, heart pounding, the letters still tucked inside his jacket like secret prayers. The ceremony begins. Music swells. Emily walks down the aisle, her hand trembling slightly as she clutches a small bouquet of white roses. For an instant, she glances toward the back, where she imagines her father might have stood if he'd come. Michael watches her with quiet strength, his expression shifting between love and understanding. When they reach the altar, the officiant's words fade beneath the sound of Daniel's quiet breath in the truck, sensing with the rhythm of the vows he can almost hear but not bear to witness. When the vows pause, Michael lifts his hand to signal the officiant. A murmur spreads through the crowd. Emily looks up, confused. "Before we continue," he says softly, "I want to say something." His voice carries across the chapel like wind through leaves. He tells them love isn't just about finding someone new. Sometimes it's about healing what's been broken for too long. Then he looks toward the open doorway. The light outside flickers. Everyone turns as one. Emily's breath catches. She doesn't see anyone, just the glint of sunlight off a blue truck parked down the hill. Back in the truck, Daniel wipes his eyes and laughs under his breath. He can't explain why. Maybe it's relief. Maybe disbelief. He watches the doors, knowing she's inside, waiting for words he'll never fully find. Then his phone buzzes on the passenger seat. Unknown number. He hesitates, then answers. Michael's voice comes through, steady and soft. "Mr. Hayes, she knows you're here." Silence. Daniel swallows hard. "What should I do?" he asks. On the other end, Michael says gently, "Come inside. It's time." The church doors creak open. Daniel hesitates in the doorway, the weight of every year between them pressing down on his shoulders. The music fades, replaced by the soft shuffle of guests turning to look. He stands still, unsure if he belongs here. Michael meets his gaze and gives a small, reassuring nod. Emily freezes, her breath shallow, the bouquet trembling in her hands. For a long heartbeat, no one moves. Then Daniel takes one step forward. The first step back toward the life he left behind. Daniel lowers his gaze, his voice barely more than breath. "I didn't mean to interrupt." The officiant steps aside. No one speaks. Emily's lips part, but no sound comes out. Michael walks down from the altar to meet Daniel halfway. "You didn't interrupt," he says gently. "You arrived." The two men stand face to face again, but this time there's no tension, only quiet respect. The air feels sacred, as if time itself has paused to let forgiveness pass through. Michael turns to the guests. His voice steadies, though his eyes shimmer. "Before we continue, I need to share something." Emily watches him, confusion deepening. "Years ago, before I was born, my father was in a car accident on a coastal road. He would have died that night if a stranger hadn't pulled him from the wreckage and disappeared." He pauses, emotion thickening his words. "That man was Daniel Hayes." Gasps ripple through the room. Emily covers her mouth, tears brimming as she looks toward her father, the man who saved her future without knowing it. The truth hangs in the air like a light too bright to look at directly. Emily walks toward her father slowly, the hem of her dress brushing the aisle runner. When she reaches him, she stops just close enough for him to see his reflection in her tears. "You were always there," she whispers, voice breaking. Daniel shakes his head, words caught behind years of regret. "I wasn't. Not when it mattered." She smiles faintly through tears. "You saved him. You saved me, too." The room disappears. There is only the two of them, breathing the same moment again. Michael steps beside them, placing a gentle hand on Daniel's back. "You were never forgotten," he says, quietly. The officiant clears his throat, smiling through the hush. "Then perhaps today two families become one in more ways than we expected." Laughter breaks through tears. Daniel finally takes Emily's hand. Tentative, trembling, but real. For the first time, she doesn't look like the little girl he left behind. She looks like someone he's finally allowed to know again. The reception hums with laughter and music. Daniel sits near the edge of the room, quietly watching his daughter surrounded by people who love her. He feels both full and empty. Full of pride, empty of time. Emily glances toward him more than once, each time with eyes that say more than words ever could. Michael joins him briefly, handing him a glass of champagne. "She's glad you came," he says softly. Daniel nods, unable to speak. The music slows, and the lights dim, as if the night itself is exhaling. Later, Emily walks over, the crowd parting slightly as she approaches. Daniel stands instinctively, uncertain, his hand brushing the back of his chair. She smiles through the faint glow of fairy lights. "You didn't have to come," she says. "I know," he answers. "That's why I did." She exhales, eyes glistening. For a long moment, they just look at each other, the years between them no longer sharp, just fragile and human. The song changes to something slower. "Dance with me?" she asks. He nods, eyes wet, voice gone. They move slowly, unsure of the rhythm, but finding it anyway. He steps on her dress once. They laugh quietly, and something in the sound heals both of them. He whispers an apology she doesn't need to hear, and she shakes her head gently. "You're here," she says. "That's enough. The music swells, not grand but warm, like a promise made late but meant forever. Around them, the crowd disappears into blur and light. When the music ends, Daniel reaches into his pocket and takes out the letter. The one Emily wrote years ago but never sent. He hands it to her. "I think it's yours again," he says. She unfolds it, realizing what it is, and smiles through tears. "I don't need it anymore," she says, placing it back in his hand. "You answered it." Daniel folds it carefully, placing it against his heart. For the first time, he feels lighter, as though forgiveness has a sound in its silence. Later that night, when the hall is nearly empty, Daniel steps outside into the quiet. The stars above the city seem brighter than he remembers. He breathes deeply, hands in his pockets, eyes soft. From inside, faint laughter drifts through the open doors, her laughter. He smiles, whispering to the night, "She's home." Then he looks at the horizon and begins walking, not away, but toward whatever life still waits. Because sometimes coming back isn't the end. It's where everything begins again. Oh,